Welcome to Verbal Pick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are everyday people. I'd like to welcome you all to the show. We're live on location at Emancipation Park, the heart of the trade, getting ready to interview one Deborah Jones and her ordeal on the cruise ship as she was traveling around the world. Black female that's making history during this COVID-19 pandemic, and we want to get details of what actually took place and why they wouldn't let the ship dock in the Americas, and why she had to go back to Europe in order for them to fly her back to the Americas. And as you all know, and some of you had witnessed this when they interviewed her live on ABC and some other news channels. But we have the exclusive, so you all stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Joe. And we're live, Verbal Pick Radio, with Miss Deborah Jones, as promised. Deborah Jones, how you feeling today?
I'm doing great.
Great, and I'm glad you're doing great, considering the circumstances and the ordeal that you went through on the Queen Mary 2. We're getting ready to go back to before January the 3rd, right?
Yes.
You sitting at home, right?
Yes.
And you like, hey, wait a minute, you know what? I want to take me a cruise, right?
Yes.
And so, what all did that cruise detail?
It was a world cruise. Mm-hmm. Take you to Africa, Asia, Dubai, Sri Lanka, those places. Yeah,
so
114 days.
Wow, now that's powerful. Now at that time, did you hear the word Corona prior to your the departure on the Queen Mary 2?
No.
Right. Now, we were hearing dates because the coronavirus, or COVID-19, and the reason why it was titled COVID-19 is simply because it was discovered in 2019. And I know a lot of you here on the news going back and forth as far as who knew what and when did they know what they knew. And there was a lot of people saying, well, the information was given to the president at the time, or the government, and they didn't move on it quickly. They actually kind of downplayed it and thought it wasn't going to be that serious. So people and tourists like yourself were saying, well, hey, they had no idea or no prior knowledge to this. They're on a 114-day cruise around the world.
Yes.
So could you tell us, when did you become aware that it was serious of this coronavirus?
Basically, when they actually canceled the world cruise, we were in Australia, March 15th. That's when they said, okay, the captain announced the cruise has been canceled, effective tomorrow.
While you was on the cruise?
Yes.
What was your reaction?
Like, what?
Right.
Wait, because we had already passed up Asia because there was so much going on, right? So they didn't cancel it at that point until we got back to Australia. We went to Australia, then we went around the coast of Australia, up north, and then back south. Then that's when they announced it. I kind of figured that they knew. I'm thinking to myself, I think they knew even before we left. But it's hard to get your money back.
Right.
I guess for them to give us our money back. So
Right.
I figured, well, they just went on and did what they could and give us what they could. And then the main office said, okay, let's shut it down. So they shut it down while we were in Australia.
So what was the move on the ship after that? How were the people reacting
Everybody
to
was
it?
like crazy, running around, erratic, nervous, anxious, cussing, saying all kind of stuff.
And this was on the Queen Mary 2.
Yes.
Imagine. Now, this is actually history in the making. As I told y'all earlier, we are live at Emancipation Park, but this was the first black female on the cruise ship, the Queen Mary 2, because while she was on the ship, we were at home watching news coverage of what was actually taking place. And Miss Raven from ABC Channel 13 News, as a matter of fact, when I got back from my cruise from Mexico, I come home, turn my television, watching the news, trying to get some of the latest information on the COVID-19, and I saw Deborah Jones being interviewed on the ABC News, right?
Yes.
And I was like, I know. Matter of fact, I tried to call, but I guess at that time, you all couldn't have a signal at that time, or when the calls wasn't actually coming through or whatnot. Or maybe you was going through so much you ain't had time to talk to nobody. You trying to figure out what was going on, right?
Well, actually, if you're not on WhatsApp, then I couldn't even receive or make the calls to a person of interest if I needed to. So if you didn't have WhatsApp, then I couldn't communicate with you anyways.
Right.
But when she spoke to me, the reason I reached out to my daughter, Lakeisha Morris, and I asked her, I said, someone needs to know that we're out here. And I know from Houston, I'm thinking I'm the only black female that's on this ship, because I hadn't met anyone out of the 2,600 passengers. I had never met anyone of color on the ship from Houston. So I'm like, you need to let someone know that I'm out here, because I didn't know at that point if anyone knew. So that's when I reached out to her, and she reached out to ABC, and the lady, Miss Raven, interviewed me via, cell phone and WhatsApp.
Right. And now a lot of people that I spoke with that saw that interview was saying that you looked like you were calm, cool, and collected, right? That you handled it well, but were you kind of afraid at that point?
I had already went through those stages. I think that was April 1, the beginning. And then when it actually happened, I was like, March 16th. So I had kind of like calmed down. But first I was like really nervous. I was upset, didn't know how I was going to get home, when I was going to get home. Because, they were telling us we're no longer a passenger ship, we're a merchant ship. I'm like, what the heck is a merchant ship?
Right.
Had never heard of that before.
Right. What was that? Well, how did they switch from a passenger ship to a merchant ship?
Because they said we didn't have all of the amenities that we normally would have on a passenger ship versus a merchant ship. And I had to sign the waiver, stating if anything happened to me medically, that I was like pretty much on my own.
Right. And we want to get into that. Matter of fact, we get into that now. To me, but I'm not a lawyer, but to me that's a form of injustice, because what they're actually saying is they trying to get folks to take away their right to sue. For not being or not having things in place to cover their own assets, as we say. Now, is there any legal ramifications that can come from this, or once you sign, that's just it? Did they try to make things better for you all, give you a portion of your money back, or?
They're in the process of doing a portion of the monies before contacting legal assistance. I don't know at this point if anyone in this area would do that. I haven't contacted anyone as of today, but well, I'll see what happens in the future.
That's right.
Because it was no one's fault, it just happened. It wasn't the ship's fault, it wasn't my fault, but I had insurance, so I don't know what's going to happen out of that. So we'll see.
Right, but now did they turn around and head back to the States at that point?
No, we never came back to the States. My trip was to go back to the States, New York. I was supposed to have disembarked in New York, but unfortunately, they said no. In Australia, you will not be going back to New York. You're gonna disembark in the UK. And I'm like, what? Okay.
You gotta go back
to UK. We had to disembark in UK and fly from Heathrow to Miami, then Miami to Houston. And when I got off in Miami, they did check my little temperature. Then when I got to Houston, they had the troopers there, and I had to sign the form saying that I'm a self-quarantine for 14 days. And if I didn't, it would be a $1,000 penalty. And they did come to my home. So this is not a joke. They did come out to my home the next day.
So they will come and check.
Oh yes, they checked.
But so now, when you left January 3rd and now you're back in Houston, did you notice the change of the city?
It's crazy.
Because before you left, there was no social distancing.
Right.
You were able, you can go to the store and buy you some Lysol and Clorox and paper towels and whatnot. So when you touched down in Houston, well, you couldn't go to the store.
I couldn't go. Not at that point.
Right.
I couldn't go until April 30th, which was my 14 days. And then when I did get out, this was like this is like crazy. The freeways is a mess. People a mess. And I just pretty much stay at home.
Well, who came to make sure you were doing your 14-day?
No
quarantine?
One after that first day. No one. No one else came back. But I know that I needed to stay in because I didn't want to get sick, and I didn't want anyone else to get sick. And not saying that I had anything, but I just wanted to play it safe.
That's right.
And I stayed at home.
That's right. I mean, for all of you that's watching, this is history in the making, because we'll talk about coronavirus, COVID-19, till the end of time now.
Yes.
I mean, this is etched in our memories. This is etched in the subconscious mind. This is etched in history now. So we will talk about this. And when we talk about the story of the COVID-19, I want you all to think of Miss Deborah Jones, Houston Strong, Houston's own, who was actually in the beginning of this ordeal on the Queen Mary 2. When you all hear them talk about the cruise ships and how they wouldn't allow them to dock, and how the president stated that keep them out at sea. He didn't want them coming onto American soil, infecting Americans, and how people was upset that why that they didn't let some dock in San Francisco and they moved them to Oakland because that's where most of the minorities was. And they let them debark in Oakland, and how they didn't send them on the Queen Mary 2 straight to the New York. They sent them to the UK and then had to fly to Miami and then had to fly to Houston.
Yes.
But we're glad you back.
Thank
and
you.
we're glad you're safe. And so now, wearing the mask, that's the new norm. That's the new norm, bro. We socially distancing, but I wanted you all to hear someone who is actually in it, because sometimes when you watch it on television, you feel empathy for those that go through things such as this. but to actually see and hear from someone who was there, now that's entirely totally different.
It was something.
But now was the buffet still going?
No.
They shut the buffet down?
They shut the buffet down. Shut the buffet down, yes. We only had one restaurant. We only had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But of course, me being who I am, what I am, and what I'm about, I decided not to eat in the restaurant because people were blowing their noses, coughing, and I didn't want to get whatever they had.
Right.
That's just on a regular day. So I ate in the comfort of my room. So I had an interior room, and then they were nice. They moved me to a balcony in case, that we got really quarantined. Because I was on the ship, I told you, for 30 days. From March 15th to I got off in April 15th. That was 30 days on the ship, non-stop. They only stopped for fuel and supplies.
Wow.
And
what do you think people, or that the travel and the cruise industry would ever come back? Will people be comfortable enough to get back?
I think they're gonna come back, because then I think they're gonna offer specials. Now they did give us like they gave us like so much money toward another trip,
right.
And then they gave us a 100% refund for like 40 nights. We missed,
okay.
And then they gave you 125% toward another. So they gave you 3 little packages, so you can choose whichever. So that was good. So I'm just waiting on my little refund on my credit card.
Now, would you personally go back on a cruise?
If I want to take advantage of the $1,300 that they offering me or offering people, I might, depending on the cost of if they have any specials. But I actually say that the ship I was on, I think it was safer than all the other ships.
Okay, good.
The Canard line, they were good on trying to make sure we were safe, and those people were like really cleaning and keeping up, making sure that everybody had the distance. Even when we had church service, they were saying do the social distancing. And
I bet folks were packing up in that church once that corona hit.
No, we had church mostly every Sunday, pretty much every Sunday, and I went. But I'm saying, you still had to do the 6 feet, in the church.
Right.
The captain made sure he made those announcements. So, but it was an experience that'll be with me forever.
Yeah, because you're a world traveler. This is not your first time traveling out of the country.
No, it's not.
Yeah, you travel. You know?
I am an avid traveler, and but my mom always used to say, and then the Bible says too, you have not because you ask not. So I pray and ask God to keep me safe.
That's right.
And I was safe.
He kept you safe.
Kept me safe.
That's right. And your story will go all over the world. It's been all over the news in Houston. I mean, while you were actually going through it, while you were on the ship, and because the story needs to be told, I want people to know the dynamics of this.
It was real. It was real.
A black female or more, person of color, whatever term that we use today to describe ourselves, right? This is Black history in the making. A world traveler. Then at the cusp of the coronavirus, the COVID-19, went through the ordeal on the Queen Mary 2, the cruise ship, because in the beginning it was all about the cruise ships.
Yes.
And the docking of the cruise ships. She was she was going through that, and then the turning away from being able to disembark in the States, going back to the UK. Then I know that was stressful and it was draining.
It was.
And when you touched back in Houston, how did you feel? I know you wanted to kiss the ground.
I was so happy. Oh my gosh, I was like screaming.
Right. And then, so when you landed in Houston.
Yes.
And soon as you left the airport, or when you arrived, when did you find out you had to do the 14-day quarantine?
Oh, when I got off, right at the gate.
Oh, at the gate?
Yeah.
You like, what's going on?
They like waiting for you right there.
At the gate.
Yes.
And they took your word now. And for some who was like, man, I ain't quarantined for no 14 days. I'm finna move around. Little do they know, they was making sure you was doing your 14 hours.
Yeah, I had to sign the paper right there.
Wow.
Ma'am, make sure you understand.
What agency was that though?
That was the troopers, the constables
the
or whatever. Yeah. It was real.
That's a real deal.
I'm like, for real? They like, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
But now I'm gonna say this. When I was on American Airlines, they were good. They distanced us. It was like I had my own row.
Alright.
And it was the person in front of me was like 3 rows ahead of me.
Okay.
So they were really good with that. Now,
so traveling was safe.
When I left, it was, yes.
Okay.
Now prior to that, when some people got off in Australia, I don't know anything about that. But when I got off April 15th, I was good.
You were good.
Yeah, so they provided a good service.
So what about the airlines? Would you get on the plane and travel now, or dang?
I'm gonna give 2 years.
Okay.
So
till by that time we should have a vaccine.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully.
So I'm gonna fly.
That's very interesting because, as you all know, we're doing this live, so we still in the COVID-19.
Yes.
We still in that era right now, so we don't know what the future holds. I know they're saying come June, it's supposed to we're supposed to have a resurgence due to the fact that more people are out now since they reopening the economy. We don't know yet. I do know that a lot of people are buying up all the freezers out there. They talking about a meat shortage is coming. You can't go to the store and buy certain things now. So, hey, we don't know. But what I do know is that I'm glad to have Deborah Jones on Verbal Pick Radio everyday people, because she is everyday people that's doing extraordinary things like traveling the world. Come on.
Thank you.
Come on.
I'm a survivor.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. H-Town Strong. Verbal Pick Radio, everyday people to move it. We out.